My name is Rosanna Miller, and this happened in Bellefontaine, Ohio. And this happened to my family of law enforcement abuse, civil abuse, government abuse, and guardianship abuse.
The camera on now. You and I just carry on the conversation.
Okay.
So you'll look at me, and we're just going to talk.
Okay.
Now, hopefully you and I are going to have enough time to discuss all kinds of stuff today, and we can plug you in if there's ever anybody who isn't here. So I'm hesitant to ask you to go back and tell me the story, but I'm going to ask you to, but just don't give all the details. Try to make it concise. I know if you were to tell your whole story, you'd go for a couple hours. So cut it down to where we get it to about 30 minutes worth of story.
Okay.
And go back and how did this happen? What happened? How did it happen?
Well, what happened to me or my family was my mother was my father's caretaker and took care of everything for both of them. And she ends up dead. It immediately goes into an investigation, and they're looking at my brother for something that doesn't happen at home. And it's an investigation. It's an active investigation for 7 months. Immediately, I had to file for my father in probate because I'm the power of attorney and the successor for their trust, and somebody has to help Dad. And of course, my brother had come back home and been living there in my parents' home again, getting help. He's always coming back home. And this time, she was evicting him out. My parents were evicting him out. There's eviction, cutting him off for any more funding. They were done. And so he's in the house with my dad while I'm trying to get guardianship, and I have a house, a job that I've got to come home to. So it's very hard distance-wise to be doing all this. Anyway, long story short, the judge just drags this out. Everything come in and backed me up. Professional credentials, credentialed psychologist came in. The detective can't use my father as a witness in the prosecution of my mother's case. Everything backed me up that Dad's mentally impaired, but this was drug out. And for almost 3 years, I was forced to file a writ of mandamus for public records. The judge was refusing us public records. I had to file a writ to force the judge to make a decision. And from there it was downhill. I was destined to lose everything, the guardianship, the estate. I mean, my parents' legal documents have been torn up into shreds.
Okay, let me stop you. What were you thinking when the judge started dragging everything out? Had you had experience in court before?
No, not of that nature. I knew how corrupt I saw the government was becoming. Me and my parents talked about it all the time, the things they were beginning to do. But I knew on the first hearing we had, May the 1st, 2007, I could see the signs on the wall. I heard the judge going on and on about how he's responsible for my dad's money. Many times in the hearing transcript it talks about this. And at one spot the judge says, it's too late for me. I have millions of dollars in my name around this county. And I thought, why do you have millions of dollars of money, of the people's money, in your name around this county?
Apparently ringing to say we have messages, so.
In fact, I think I have that transcript, that page with me.
Hello? Would you send them on up? Thank you. Bye. I have guests in the lobby. All right, we're still rolling. So you saw the handwriting on the wall, and he's talking about having millions of dollars. And did this guy have any way to have millions of dollars except by?
He's talking about estates, money from kids. I've got the transcript with me. You could even show it on the phone if you want to.
All right. So he's boasting
Yep.
about the fact that he's got all this money.
Mm-hmm.
It's not his money, but it is kind of.
Yep. Yep.
Say that as a soundbite. Say one of the things that struck me as odd is the judge was boasting about all this money he had. It's not really his money. He's talking about all this estate money that he was treating as if it's his own or something like that.
What the first thing that struck me funny was, or odd, was that the judge was boasting from the bench how he had all these millions of dollars in his name around the county. And I thought, why does he have millions of dollars in his name around the county? Obviously, he was referring to the estate money, children's monies, as though it was his. And it just blew me away that he would be so forthright and just blast that out there, that as though it was his money. And here it is, the people's. It wasn't even the court's money, it was his money.
Yeah, so he didn't say the court's money.
No.
I have all this money. So you pretty much got a heads up at that point, this is not going to be pretty.
Especially when he kept wanting to bring in my dad's, saying he's responsible for it. He's accountable for it. He takes that very seriously. He has to count for every penny. At one spot he said this. And so I'm thinking, okay, he's dragging all this, the estate, into his court. It was a dead giveaway. And what's so, it has anybody so upset is when he ends up signing an inventory missing $177,000. How is that accountable?
Well, it's not. So, so you're there, and your first experience with, what's the name of the judge?
Judge Michael L. Brady.
Yeah, I know his name. Is after your experiences with Judge Michael, and when I ask you a question, incorporate my question in your response.
That's right.
After your experiences with Judge Michael L. Brady, do you feel that he is an honest, upright citizen?
Absolutely not.
Tell me what you think of Judge Michael Brady.
I do not believe that Michael L. Brady is an honest citizen. No, he's not. He's absolutely not. Too many people have been hurt by him, and he's running around for 4 terms without an oath, a certificate of oath of office, filed with the clerk as ORC 3.23 says he's supposed to have.
All right, so as a soundbite, the judge in my family's case, Judge Michael L. Brady, doesn't even have a filed oath of office, which, based on my study, indicates that it's not even legal for him to be operating as a judge.
The Judge Michael L. Brady, who was in charge of or overseeing the guardianship case for my father, doesn't even have a certificate of oath of office, I found out earlier this year, nor does he have a bond as the clerk of the juvenile court. And according to ORC 3.23, he has deemed to refuse his office. It's considered vacant, and the clerk is supposed to be submitting that to the governor, and the governor has denied to uphold that law. That would be the governor of the state of Ohio, Governor Kasich.
So what's your view of Governor Kasich at this point?
My view of Governor Kasich is the same view as my Ohio Senator, the Ohio Attorney General, and now the State Auditor's Office, who have swept all of this underneath a rug, and they've just called it deficiencies, according to the accounting firm that just did an audit in Logan County. And I have an email.
And your view of all of them is what?
Corrupt.
Say that.
My view of all the officials are corrupt. They're covering for everybody. They are truly above the law. They have no laws that they have to abide by other than their own. And if this isn't proof of it, I don't know what is.
Okay, let's say hi to the ladies. All right, so you want to make a comment about something else about Judge Brady? Judge Michael L. Brady?
Well, Judge Michael L. Brady's had a lot of problems up in that county. Mrs. Green's murder was in 2005, and from a boy that got out of a residential group home that the court was in charge of. And I know that family had a civil lawsuit against him and the commissioners. And just a little over a year ago, they settled that one and with a judgment against him and the commissioners. So and a baby was beat, almost murdered. And Judge Brady could have stopped all of these. The government, the courts have the responsibility and the duty to stop all of this. But depending on power, money, is how they want to rule it. If they go by the laws, they can't go wrong. But they refuse to do it. It's called discretion.
Indiscretion. Lack of discretion.
Well, they call it discretion. They have judicial and prosecutorial discretion. That's what I've been told over and over again.
All right. When I got you off to talking about Judge Brady, you had talked about him bragging about having millions of dollars.
Right.
When it's not his money, but he treats it as his money.
Exactly.
So this was the hearing, and you got to feel, you knew instantly you were in trouble.
Yeah.
Go from there.
So as the case proceeded on, it was, continuances. We've all been through it. Continuances, motions, hearings, and then they ordered another psych eval, a second one. And at that point, it came back to match the first, that my father is mentally impaired and needs a guardian, which is what I've known from the day one. At that point, Judge Michael L. Brady decided to keep the assessment from us that the psychological doctor performed. And I knew underneath the Ohio Sunshine Laws, the Public Records Act, that it was ours to have, because anything in probate is public records if the judge orders it. So at that point, we had to file a writ of mandamus for public records. This even drug out the case longer. They waited on that to decide on the guardianship. What does that have to do with my father's incompetency? And in the end, it was public records, and I was awarded the writ, and he had to pay my attorney's fees up to the Ohio Supreme Court level, and that didn't make him happy at all. But he knew this was public records. There's no denying that. He'd already released everything prior. He knew this was public records. He did this deliberately. There's no doubting about that.
Who did this deliberately?
Judge Michael L. Brady did this deliberately. Held the public records from us that I was forced to file a writ of mandamus for.
Okay. Well, let me stop you a second and get a soundbite from you to explain to people how it is that the courts operate and bleed people of hard-earned money. You talked about continuances, motions, etc. So try to give me a soundbite that can go in the movie that tells people that.
Once our cases get into the courts, if there's money in the family, the situation, the case, the courts have this canny ability to rule by discretion, drag these out to make the judges money, to make outside people money, and they'll zap up everything they can to make as much money as they can. It's interesting because in the case with the baby who was beaten, this is a family who has a long history of abusing their children. Funny how when the time came by statute of Ohio Revised Code, he had to give the baby back to the family. He didn't drag that one out, but there was no money in it to be made. So it's interesting how I've watched this. The group home that had the boy that got out and killed Mrs. Green, they were getting federal funding. I believe the paper said somewhere around $75,000 a year for this group home. And when the state came out in to investigate that home after the murders, they found them, I think it was either 43 or 47 violations, huge violations. So they were taking the money and not running the home properly. That's what it comes down to. You can't see it any other way. Otherwise, they wouldn't have had that many violations going on. So this is what it comes down to. It comes down to the money.
And when I spend time writing like this, it's because there's an especially juicy comment that I want to find to get the editors to be able to find. So I write down a time code, and so just bear with me if I do that.
I've watched this, Bill. I've watched this through almost 6 years of seeing these cases. I've even researched other cases up there. There was a case, the Merriman case. It was a $500,000 estate, and the man had, committed suicide. Anyway, this estate went into the Logan County Probate Court, and they drug this case out. One lawyer made $60,000. They had 2 co-administrators, an attorney for the estate, and I watched them just bleed this estate dry. I went through this file. I actually do my homework and look at this, and more people need to. They really need to challenge, go in, look at the public records, and do their own homework on all this stuff. Yeah.
When we left Maine and we're taking everything down to the car to pack up, there was about 5 or 6 of us, and we had the elevator virtually full. The woman, probably early 40s, got on the elevator, and I apologized. I said, "I'm sorry, we've got so much stuff in here. We're filming a movie." She said, "Oh, really? What's it about?" I said, "Government and judicial corruption." And she kind of nodded, and I said, "Are you a victim?" She said, "Aren't we all?" I said, "Yeah, if you've ever had to hire an attorney, you're a victim."
Yep, exactly.
All right, so let me get you to say as a soundbite that you've researched other cases in this county involving the same judge. It's always the same judge?
It's...
Just say in the county then.
Yeah, in the county. I've researched other cases in the county. It seems to be the same JDs that are involved. It's the same top guys that are involved in these cases.
What's a JD?
A Juris Doctorate, the attorneys.
Attorneys, okay.
Yeah, their initials. It's all the same attorneys, I'll just say attorneys, that seem to be involved in these cases that I've researched. But
just say as a soundbite, I've researched other cases in this county to verify that it's not just us that this happens.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and as I've been traveling this road, I have researched other cases in the county of Logan, County, Ohio, and it's not just us that are being taken advantage of. It's many other families, other estates that I have looked up and researched that have been bled dry financially, exploited, and it's always about the money. You always notice that a case with a lot of money is the ones that drag out the longest because they can call them complicated, even though everything was there in the beginning to stop all of it, all the legal documents, the tests, everything. While all
Water?
Sorry, when someone just says they got sneeze, if you yell watermelon, they
Watermelon.
don't forget to sneeze.
Okay. All right, so they're running up the costs and pick it up from there.
Through the process of these almost 6 years that I've been going through, and the nightmare of the law enforcement and the prosecutor's office that have just sorely slaughtered my mother's investigation. I have to say that. I've just noticed through the court system, they seem to have an intertwined working relationship that, and they go along with each other. I've watched public records. Our public records were being refused. I had to file against that. Guardianships have been denied that should have been ordered. Wills have been torn up and just trashed. Children have been abused. Elderly have been murdered because of dereliction of duty by the courts. The list just goes on, and they are totally unaccountable to no one. They have nobody they have to answer to. And then when you find out they have no O's on record, or they don't have bonds filed, and according to law, if they don't do that, they've refused their office, there's nothing you can do about it. I don't know how to stop this. What do the American people do to stop this? When you go to the state level, and they don't deny what you found. In fact, they actually admit to it, but they're just going to sweep everything around, wave their magic wand, and it's okay with the world. And it's not. If we have statute of limitations, so should they.
Hang on. It's okay. You want to come in and sit back here somewhere?
We got a little gang out out in the hallway.
Gang, how big's the gang?
4 people.
4 people. Why don't you guys?
I can step out because I'm
No, we can sit people back here in the bed, but maybe you guys ought to go down, one of you, and ask whether they have some folding chairs or something we could use.
Oh, we're standing now. I don't think it's.
All right.
You got one chair for this lady?
Yes, please.
You want to come? Can we squeeze her in on the couch?
As soon as I get this mask taken care of, that's about what it is.
We've been standing out there so we wouldn't interrupt you, but I said maybe they're not even recording.
Yeah, no, it's all right. We, when we, like we're leaving it running now, when we start the interview process, we just leave the camera running, so it's okay. But if anybody has cell phones, silence them, please.
Yeah.
And you guys can pull up a piece of floor, or back here, we've got room for 3 or 4 to sit on the couch, but we might ask them
Take
about
mine with you
folding
and hold on
chairs.
to it for me, would you?
What is it?
My cell phone. Just hold on to me till I'm done.
What if I want to call you?
Wonder whether they would let you have
Just
that
answer it then.
continental breakfast.
Answer yourself, Larry.
Well, I didn't ask them. I should have. They probably would let me do it after it clears, but then I have to set up twice.
Yeah.
But I've got these rooms, but this is not the same room I had in Maine. And the one in Maine was huge. And when I checked in down here, they said, we only have 3 of those and they're all taken. I said, what do I need to ask for? And they explained to me from now on, I call the hotel direct and ask for the big one. So, well, anyway, we make do. All right. We need to talk a little bit more about the botched investigation.
Yeah, we do.
You need to explain that your mother, what happened, just very concisely, but then give some bullet point details of how they blew the investigation.
Okay. What do you want me to start with?
How about your mother being found dead?
Okay. When my mother was found in the house, and the paramedics come, and from that moment on, when it went into investigation, no.
You got to start and explain that she's dead.
Okay.
Because these things, everything
Okay.
for everybody, everything is a soundbite. My voice isn't heard in the movie. So it has to be something that somebody could be watching and we plug in and they understand. So just start saying, my mother was found dead.
When my mother was found dead, immediately her death went into an active police investigation. And we assume, as the people, that the authorities know what they're doing. They'll back you off. They'll tell you not to get involved or you're going to botch things. And sometimes when your intuitions speak, you need to learn to listen. Later on, through this process, years into it, we found out that things weren't done for the investigation that should have been. Somewhere along the line, and this was in the very beginning, the chain of custody was lost. I want to know who lost the chain of custody. Her hands were bagged. They didn't scrape them during the autopsy. They threw away her clothes, so no touch DNA can be done on them. They didn't dust a wetback that should have been dusted. They should have got a search warrant for a document that was found on the suspect's computer 2 weeks after her death that states if he's convicted, he's going to get paid his inheritance. It's supposed to go to annuity of a Swiss bank and given to him upon his release. Those kind of things aren't right. You don't find those kind of things. And they never pulled a search warrant. I could go down a whole list of things of why they didn't do the forensic testing. None of the forensic testing was done. None of it. They've got motive off the Richter scale. But I want to know why the forensic testing wasn't done. The police and the prosecutor's office do not have the right to sit there and throw out results of tests that were never done.
Well, what happened when you called this to the attention of the authorities? Did they jump in and correct it immediately?
No. They could exhume her body, but they won't. I'm sorry. I'm sure. You're right. No, when I found out that all these mistakes had been made and the testing wasn't done that they led us to believe was done, they excused it. They excused it all away. As to say, well, but your brother was in the house, so we expect to find his fingerprints on the wetback. However, what if they tested and there were no fingerprints on it at all? Why wouldn't her fingerprints be on it if she was carrying it? My point is they don't have the right or the authority to make calls on tests that have never been run.
Hey, folks.
Yeah, my husband, he never stopped talking.
He never stops talking?
Never.
Well,
Like forever. I think I'm going to trade seats. These are beautiful.
Crooked everywhere. Crooked everywhere. She's been thinking about Chris. But this is her mother and brother. None. Oh, yeah, hear how crooked. You don't want to hear how crooked all of our
I already know.
You already know.
I wish Shane had been here.
Yeah, I wish you would have been retired, because he can remember. What'd you say?
this was supposed to be a room about 3 minutes. Somebody else had it when I arrived.
Nothing's wrong.
Thanks, Bill.
All right, so if you guys said anything nasty about me while I was gone, it was
No.
recording, so.
Oh, no.
I was talking about the
Sorry, doesn't matter. It's not going to be used.
I was talking about the DNA on.
They're going to check and see if they have a room that we can use for free. So if so, we'll go through the. We got enough people. It will
Right.
Take a quick load down there. So we'll see, but we'll keep going. All right. So nobody came to your aid on the investigation.
No, they were when we would ask questions, we'd be put off. It was evasive. They'd avoid us. And then, like I said, years later, we found out that all these forensic tests weren't done. And in fact, none of them were done. Even the ones that were ordered, we found out about a year ago that the coroner who did my mother's autopsy has been sliding autopsies for police and or close association with law enforcement. There was a investigation done by of sorts by one of the reporters in the Cincinnati Enquirer newspaper that was printed September of 2011 that had different individuals in this where they were sliding the autopsies for the way the police would come in and want them to be ruled on. My mother's story is on the last page, and again, we're back to why did they scrape her nails for DNA match when her hands are bagged? How can you not scrape somebody's nails when their hands are bagged? And they've taken photos of scratches on the suspect.
All right. Explain the importance of hands being bagged.
Anytime that a person goes down to be autopsied in a situation of foul play, homicide, whatever, hands being bagged, according to even the Montgomery County Coroner's Office, signals gunshot, to check for gunshot residue, scraping the nails, something on the hands need to be tested. And how they can let a person go to the grave and not do that testing before it happens when it's been marked, when it's been signaled, is beyond me.
Hello, we're filming, but come on in. You want to come back here and sit on the bed? We've got pull up a spot on the bed.
On the bed. Oh my.
Or that bench.
Hotel already.
The bench works.
I left room on the bench.
Oh, yeah, this room. I'll go sleep there.
When we found out about that the testing wasn't done, the local coroner has had nothing to say about it. That was his responsibility to make sure, him and the detective, to make sure that that was done down there in the autopsy.
Is this just incompetence, or you think somebody's trying to cover something up?
When you get this many errors going on, I mean, there's a whole list of errors. They didn't know forensic testing at all. And they've got motive that's jumping out the windows. And documented, too. It's not just hearsay, or it's documented. How can anybody call this incompetence? Nobody can be this incompetent. It just screams off the windows there's something hugely wrong here. So,
let me ask you about motive. who do you
Who's on whose part?
who do you no, the motive and who do you suspect? Who should have been considered as a suspect in the death of your mother?
Oh, my brother was considered a suspect. They interviewed him. He signed his Miranda rights.
Remember, I'm not her in the movie, so you have to take that.
Okay. Immediately when her death happened, they started looking at my brother. Immediately. There had already been a domestic violence at the house 3 weeks prior. And they knew that my mother and father wanted my brother out of their home. They saw an eviction notice, was cutting him off of money, funding, and so they knew that there was already trouble at the house.
Who's they?
The police. I'm sorry. The police knew that. The police knew coming there on the day of her death, there was already pre-trouble at the house.
How large is the town that this took place in?
And I think the county has 50,000 people. How many's in the town?
So how would the police officers know? Is it a small enough police department where did the same officers come out who came out on the domestic?
Yes, it's the Bellefontaine Police Department. And when they came for my mother's death, when they came out and was called for my mother's death, when the officer went back to the cruiser, he was calling it in, and the sergeant back at the department said, "Are you at 1294 Campbell Drive up on Lakewood?" And they said, "Yes." And they said, "Shut the place down. We're sending out a detective." Because there had been a domestic violence 3 weeks before. And they knew the situation, so which is why they sent people out. And from that point on, nothing went right. Absolutely nothing went right. When they were out there in the police report, they know there's something wrong, the way they went through and combed the house. But when they walked out of those doors, something got shut down. There wasn't going to be any more forensic testing. Evidence was going to be thrown away or lost, because it was. By law, the coroner is responsible to hold on to everything of the victims and give to the executor of that person's estate. So how could he let the clothes be thrown away, even if they were cut? How could he let the clothes be thrown away? He's responsible by law to hold on to those and give to the executor. Let alone.
We're going to suspend you here and go to Deb, but let me ask you this question. We're going to come back and do all
Okay.
that stuff.
He needs to be out there too.
But has anyone, how was your mother's death ruled?
My mother's death ended up being ruled undetermined. And because they didn't get any forensic pathologists to give any opinions about her death, and the local coroner even wrote me a letter and said he is not a specialist, he is not a forensic pathologist. They should have went out and gotten some people, some experts in the field to look at these injuries, but they didn't bother to do it. They did nothing at all.
And what type of injuries did she have?
She ended up dying. Her autopsy reported blunt force trauma of head and chest.
All right. So the autopsy was blunt force
Trauma of head and
chest.
Head and chest.
And it was determined that the manner of death was undetermined?
Right.
They think she blunt force traumatized herself to death?
Well, they believe, well, the suspect told the police when they got there that she fell down 12 steps. She fell down 12 steps and was just dead at the bottom of the stairs.
All right, so your brother was there.
The only one in the house.
And was she laying at the bottom of the stairs?
Yes. Yes.
They checked for handprints on her back?
No, they threw away the clothes, remember? They didn't do any touch DNA. They threw away the clothes. But they bagging her hands. They dusted the top of the stairwell. But why wouldn't you dust the wetback? What happened to gather evidence, analyze later? What happened to that? That you just throw it all away, and then you sit there and make excuses for, well, it would have been like this, or would have been like this, or would have been like this. Who are these people that think they can just conjure up, magically wave their wand, and decide how the outcome is going to be of tests that they never took.